How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be finishing up my reviews for the Mangler trilogy with the third and so far final film in the series, and this is The Mangler Reborn. This is from 2005, directed by Matt Cunningham and Erik Gardner, so a directing duo there. This stars Aimee Brooks, Reggie Bannister, who you guys remember from the Phantasm movies, Scott Speiser, and Weston Blakesley. Weston Blakesley is our new sort of killer mechanic character. Now, I do want to say, with this series, the first one is a really underrated cult classic. Tons of insanity, tons of gore. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend people watch the first Mangler. Then a little bit later, we got the Mangler 2, which was sadly pretty underwhelming. It had a lot of dumb parts, yet wasn't insane enough to be truly a good, stupid movie, and it was a showcase of a lot the worst the 90s had to offer. Despite it coming out in 2001, it just wasn't great. Now, somehow, we managed to, 4 years later, get a third movie. However, after the failure of the second movie, our budget is going way down. This is one of those movies that's a few characters in pretty much one location. It's this new house where a bit of the Mangle is being rebuilt in, like, the attic, and you only get pretty much just those four main characters. Every now and then another character will show up, every now and then they'll go to another set, but this is almost like a bottle episode, and if you guys know the first Mangle, that was big, crazy, over the top. How do you exactly do a low-budget sequel to this? Well, I do have to give the cast and crew of this movie major props. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not the best thing ever, but they did manage to pull off quite a bit with what they had, and there's definitely times in the movie where you can see the crew really trying to get more than they should be able to, and really trying to do their best, and I can definitely applaud the effort. Now, that being said, it definitely isn't the best movie ever. It has some of that insanity, and there is actually a fair amount of blood, but it definitely doesn't go as hard as the original Tobe Hooper does. You know, there's not as much crazy characters, but there is a little bit of a spark there. It's also missing that, you know, that message that was part of the thing from the first one. You know, there's no deeper meaning behind this one, but it does actually connect to the first, which definitely helps it, you know, be put over the second movie. I find that the second movie was one that had a little bit of a budget, but definitely blew it. It definitely didn't do enough, and yeah, the second one just didn't pan out great. So, some budget, not panning out great, but then the third one, no budget, but at times gets a little better than it should. So yeah, not the biggest, best thing ever, but for a low-budget movie that, you know, is one location with just a few characters, they managed to pull off some interesting stuff and get definitely closer to the spirit of the first movie than the second one did. So yeah, I thought this one was pretty good. You know, not the best thing ever. For low-budget horror fans, it's interesting, and if you guys got burnt out on the Mangler 2, it may be worth checking out. Just know what it is going into it. It's okay, you know, and for what it had, the resources available, okay is pretty good. Now, I should mention, before I get into this, at the time of recording, for whatever reason, Amazon Prime has a weird censored version of this that's streaming right now. I don't know why someone uploaded what looks like the TV edit, but you get where characters will swear, and you get that awful dead audio where they just cut out the audio, and it's like, well, I don't give up, you know, and that dead air just gets me. Also, the shower scene, they do cut out the nudity, even though it is an obvious body double, it still is just little bits of censorship that happen when you don't have physical media. Anyway, without further ado, I guess I'll go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers. I'm going to be focusing primarily on setup, and as we go through, I'll take a minute to analyze various little parts of the movie. So no major spoilers, but let's dig in a little bit. We open up with this guy who's sort of a silent guy, and he's eating dinner with his wife, and his wife is complaining about the bad situations they're in. They're kind of in trouble financially, they're not making as much money as she hopes for, and she says, all you spend your time and your money on is that machine upstairs. I'm not sure if it's in an upstairs bedroom or if it's like an attic, but upstairs in the house, there's this machine, and he's just obsessing over it. Well, the wife complains too much, and he decides it's time to fire up the machine, and he throws his wife into it, and it sort of chews her up and harvests her blood. So it's going to be one of those, you know, kind of like the first one, feeding people into the machine, but on a much more quiet, secretive scale. Now, as to what's going on here, we get the opening credits, and the opening credits do one of those newspaper montages, and if you read the headlines, you can tell what happened between the first and the third movie. Apparently, there was finally enough accidents at the original laundry facility that they finally closed down. Pieces of the Mangler went up for auction, and this guy bought a large piece of it, brought it back to his house, and started tinkering with it. Now, I do like that they're actually connected. That being said, part of the themes of the first movie was the fact that the Mangler represented a big established system that you couldn't really take down too easy because it was so ingrained within the town, the government, and the social political structure. So I mean, I do like that they referenced the first movie and told me how it was tied in, but I don't like that the Mangler's machine just died between movies. I mean, it feels like there's a movie that's missing here, but whatever. Anyway, we then cut back to the present and find out what this mechanic's doing. He's using his job as a mechanic to get into people's houses, or should I say repairman, I guess would be a better word. He's using his job as a repairman to get into people's houses, and when there's a woman alone, he takes his rubber mallet and bops her on the head and takes her and drags her back to his house, and he's going to store these women in a locked room until the Mangler's ready for more blood, and then he's going to feed each one into the new Mangler and harvest their blood. Now, I do want to say, the new character is kind of interesting. You know, there is definitely pros and cons to him. He is this man who is 100% possessed by the Mangler, and you see he's very stiff and robotic, and you get to see some, like, disturbing moments where you can tell that he has just no control over himself anymore. You know, he gets hurt, and he makes the bare minimal effort to go, huh, I'm hurt. And nothing that intense, you know, no screaming out in pain. They find him sleeping, and even though he's got a nice soft bed, the Mangler just put him in a chair, and he's just sitting in the chair, sleeping. And it's just little stuff like that, you know. He's sitting there eating his soup for dinner. He gets a call for someone he needs to do repair work, and he just gets up, dumps his soup out in the sink, doesn't finish eating it, and just walks out the door. So yeah, it's kind of a interesting concept that the Mangler's using this guy like a machine and how he's being screwed over. I kind of wish we got to see a little bit more of his humanity before, so we get to see the contrast here and really emphasize how messed up it is, but it's still an interesting concept. Now, that being said, a few things about him. His rubber mallet isn't the most threatening weapon in the world. You know, kinda, you know, it does, I know, in real life, rubber mallets are built solid. They would hurt. You could probably knock someone out with one. but it's just not threatening being rubber, you know? But that's the weapon he uses most of the movie. And towards the end, there are a few fight scenes that the choreography isn't the best. And also, you know, I get what they were going for, and I do like him for the most part, but the thing is, when you put him up next to Robert Englund was big, loud, and over the top, and this guy is quiet and reserved. Granted, that's what the character was supposed to be, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I kind of wish we got an insane person that would really tie it in if they were big and loud, you know? But anyway, he gets the main girl, locks her up in a room, and then we meet Reggie and his son. They're sitting in a car, Reggie's smoking, and they're eyeing out the house that they don't know is the Mangler house. And they say, you see how it's quiet and reserved and not drawing attention to itself? There's a chance that they're doing that because there's something valuable, and they don't want to draw attention to the house because there might be good stuff inside. I don't know if that's the best philosophy, but maybe. But even though Reggie and his son are thieves, they're still pretty interesting characters. You can tell that they've been through a lot and that their relationship is complex, but overall they still care for each other, which I really did like. You know, there's a scene where he's smoking, Reggie is, and his son goes, don't do that, Dad. And he goes, don't tell me what to do, I'll smoke if I want. And the kid goes, well, fine, I'll smoke too. I was trying to quit, but maybe I'll do it. And then Reggie takes a cigarette out of his hand and goes, no, you don't get a smoke, that's bad for you. So, yeah, like I said, a complicated relationship, but you can tell they care for each other. So good to, you know, sort of give these characters a bit of a sense of empathy and family, you know? Anyway, Reggie's gonna go in the house, and his son's going to be sort of the man in the car, keeping an eye out. They have walkie-talkies, and they're talking to each other. Well, Reggie gets in super easily. It's going to be one of those cases where the house, it kind of feels like the Mangler has influence over the house, and it kind of feels like it will let you in, but it won't let you out. And the house is a pretty cool setting, and I do like, you know, that they made the house kind of weird, you know? You can't do the Texas Chainsaw characters like the first movie had Texas Chainsaw characters, but they did kind of mimic the idea of Texas Chainsaw where you just simply wander into the wrong house and find crazy messed up stuff inside. So I did like that. So he goes in, there's some cool sequences, like he's trying to open the windows and each one of them is bricked up, almost like a surreal dream scene. And then, you know, he goes upstairs, he finds like a drawer and it's full of wallets and phones, and he doesn't know, but they're all from like the past victims, you know, and he's like, I don't understand this, but I better try to get some of the money, you know, why I can, you know, it's what I came in here for. And there's also a really good shot where he's walking up the stairs and he finally finds a light switch and he turns that on, and behind him, he doesn't know this, but the wall is just covered with bloody handprints, but he's looking the wrong way. Overall, the idea of wandering into the wrong house, wandering into a creepy house, it's a good, solid concept. We will be stuck here most of the movie, but they do a fair job of making it creepy and then having the big secret in the attic, the Mangle. It's, yeah, it's pretty cool. And I do want to say I do like the Mangler design in this one. You know, it's a piece of the original Mangler. It's refitted with stuff the guy kind of found around the home, so little arms with kitchen knives strapped to them, big bottles like those big water cooler bottles to hold all the blood. It's a really cool, crazy, messed up thing this guy is building. But of course, you know, you're gonna get him finding the girl in trouble, trying to save her, a whole bunch of locked doors and hide and seek, and I want to get out of the house, outside is just right there, but the window's boarded up, or bricked up rather, and the front door's locked. I can't get out here, I can't get out there. You know, a bit of that whole hide-and-seek game thing. We also, you know, do get the big crazy reveals, the big crazy deaths. The guy comes home, and yeah, you know, it does lead to some pretty cool moments, and I don't want to spoil the exact play-by-play, but we do get, you know, a fairly entertaining run through the house. Now, as far as, you know, the flaws, we are stuck here, and I do wish there was a little bit more to shake it up, and I do wish the movie had a little bit more of a budget to give us some insanity, and yeah, I do wish this was more insane. For the most part, it's good, and also, yeah, for other flaws, you do get the bad fight scenes towards the end, which aren't the best, but I think the biggest thing is the movie starts off with your point of view focusing pretty much on Reggie, and then the movie shifts point of views where you're focusing much more on Reggie's son. And I felt that Reggie was much more interesting, and when they start to focus where most of the plot is about the son trying to, you know, get in the house and do a bunch of stuff, the son's good, but he's not as good as Reggie. And then at the end of the movie, they focus on the final girl character, and, you know, yeah, okay, you're doing a horror movie, you want to focus on the final girl, you want to make her a bigger part, but having her not be a huge part of this movie and just kind of being locked in the room going, please help me, let me out, not spending enough time with her early on, defining her character. Like, when she gets kidnapped, there's this whole thing with her boyfriend breaking up with her and a bunch of other drama that ultimately doesn't matter. But when you get towards the end of the movie, and the movie goes, okay, she's one of the main characters now, and she gets much more of the spotlight, it's like I don't really feel like I know her too well, and I really did need to know her better, so I wish she got more of a setup, because a lot of the movie's third act spotlight does focus on her, and I feel like we focused more on Reggie and his son earlier, and I wish we got to know her better before the final act, but whatever, that's all beside the point. Overall, why the Mangler 3 is low budget and can't quite get to that insanity I would like, it definitely is a more solid effort than Mangler 2. It actually connects to the first one, and there are times when it does reach beyond its budget and do better than it has any right to. It's always good to see Reggie Bannister again, and the new killer is interesting, not the best thing ever, but interesting and definitely a memorable part of this movie. So, you know, obviously the first one's the cult classic, the second one is stupid and underwhelming, the third one, low budget, but it came out alright. Again, not great, but it came out alright. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you, you really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Mangler playlist. I've talked about the first two movies already, so if you want to see my thoughts on the whole series, you can find that right there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.